Hello, everyone. My name is Danny the Two, and today we are going to be reading an article that I found on the internet as I was researching for something that was going to be a whole topic just in itself. And that topic was, can music be evil? Question mark? Because this is something that I'm very familiar with, because when I grew up, I was taught that there were a lot of genres of music that were inherently bad just because of the fact that they were not Christian music. And then as we got even older, I learned that there were a lot of Christian groups or Christian artists who use a lot of the characteristics of these same genres that we didn't like, and we also condemned those. So I thought that was a very interesting thing growing up. And now that I am an adult, I listen to a lot of various things. I have come to the conclusion that music cannot be evil in itself, especially with something as simple as a set of drums or an electric guitar or something like that. Music can certainly influence people in a variety of ways, and some artists might not take that seriously enough to provide a good influence, and that would not necessarily be responsible, but I wouldn't say it's evil. And depending on how you feel about ghosts and spirits and that kind of thing, you may or may not believe that it's possible for a demon or something along those lines to infiltrate your minds through a vulnerability created in the music or something like that. That's not really why we're here. The main thing is that I was taught that the rock beat specifically was something that was evil. And I remember this as a kid, every time I tried to get a straight up answer as to why, they would always, whoever I was talking to would always just kind of use circular reasoning and say, oh, well, it's bad because it's bad. Or it's bad because it uses a weird offbeat thing, which was never true. It was kind of weird. So I found this article. I'm going to mostly comment on this. And this podcast episode is probably going to be longer because there was just a lot of stuff in here that I just could not stop laughing at it. It was pretty bad. I'm going to be making fun of this article for the majority of it. If you happen to find it informational, then so be it. But for the record, I am making fun of this. I think this is very poorly written. It uses a lot of very bad arguments, and it's very, I want to just laugh at it, just pretend the whole thing is a big joke. But in reality, I know a lot of people, including myself, they used to be raised with this knowledge. And we're going to read some testimonies from some people who are infiltrated, I guess. I don't know how to word it. Lots of people who believe this, and they're taking it really weirdly far. So let's go ahead and just start with oh, by the way, real quick, this article will be linked in the show notes if you want to read it for yourself. So with that being said, let's get started and read the definition of, quote, rock beat, quote. Every time they say rock beat, they put it in quotes. I think they're just trying to mock it or something. It's incredibly amusing to me. The definition of rock beat. The rock beat is a dominant and repetitious offbeat which competes with the melody and distracts from the words of a song. The contradictory messages in the beat, the words, the melody, the style of presentation, and the appearance of the musicians all create a subtle confusion in the minds, wills, and emotions of the listeners. Goddamn, which leads them to question the absolute moral standards of God. Now, that's a lot to unpack right there. Holy shit, that's great stuff. A repetitious offbeat, which competes with the melody and distracts from the words. Holy shit, they're coming out swinging. The contradictory messages in the beat, words, melody, style, and appearance of the musicians. They're saying that those things are going to confuse the listener. They're just going to be like, wow, I'm really confused. The beat conflicts with the words and the words conflict with the melody. Maybe God isn't even real. It's just like, motherfucker. It's so bad. I can't believe so many people fall for it. I mean, I get why, with a whole nother thing to dive into about the whole moral standards that are required to pretend to be good in the church and whatnot, but none of this stuff makes any sense, and they don't explain it at all. It's all fallacies. I'm going to do an episode later about fallacies, talk about how to find them. It's full of them. It's weirdly, it's horrifying, but also funny. I don't know. So reason number one, the rock beat deceives youth into violating fucking hell. The rock beat deceives youth into violating the fifth commandment. The fifth commandment, for those of you who are not Sunday school teachers and don't keep up to date, the fifth commandment, just to get this out of the way, the fifth commandment is not thou shalt not listen to rock beat. It's actually something that has very little to do with music. It's honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Now, you might be wondering, how does rock beat compare with honor thy father and mother? This is a huge reach on the article reaching part. They say, there is no question that many parents are strongly opposed to the rock beat. Therefore, those who promote the rock beat are causing young people to dishonor their fathers and mothers. Now, if your legs are not sore from taking that leap in logic, let's go ahead and dive into this just horribly sad example of how the rock beat caused a son to dishonor his parents. About 4 years ago, our church got a new youth pastor. He began playing Christian rock. Keep in mind, I'm breaking out of the quote here. This is not rock music that's like, worship Satan, have sex before marriage. This is Christian rock. This is saying, yeah, we love God, stuff like that. It's cheesy by all means, but it's okay. Before meeting and during activities, he encouraged me to get a copy of a certain tape, which I did, even though my parents forbade me from doing so. Because I was being home educated, we all know what that means, the church youth group was the only significant outside influence in my life. That's too real. That's too relatable. But that influence was enough to cause me to rebel and wreck my life for the next 4 years. Guys, this motherfucker got a Christian rock tape and it fucking wrecked his life for the next 4 goddamn years. Goddamn. I started listening to secular soft rock music thinking, what's wrong with this? It has less beat than Christian music. If only I had known what a deceiver Satan is, I would have saved myself a lot of heartache. About 7 months ago at a Christian radio station's New Year's Eve party, I was introduced to Christian rap music. Before that time, I did not listen to rap, but after hearing it there, I began justifying to myself that the beat couldn't be all bad because Christians listened to it and it didn't seem to harm them. What it did to me, guys, I hope you guys get your tissues out and your Bibles, because this part is going to break your Christian heart. What it did to me was cause a complete breakdown in morals, which led directly to my becoming involved in immoral habits and illegal activities. I was also constantly plagued with violent and unclean thoughts. What? This dude was listening to Christian rap and Christian rock and a little bit of secular rock, and then he became a fucking psychopath. He was having violent thoughts. Everything else is weirdly vague. They say unclean and immoral. I said illegal, and that's a little vague. But fucking violent thoughts? What? Since then, I have taken steps to regain the ground to give in to Satan, and for the first time in years, I have a feeling of complete freedom from the influence of this music. Oh my goodness, I'm kind of struggling right now because part of me is understanding that this is going to be a very long episode, and I've got enough other stuff to cover. I don't really want to dwell on that, but I need to talk about that. What the fuck? What? This guy. Oh my gosh, this guy is just, he became violent after listening to Christian rock and Christian rap. He had violent thoughts. There's no scientific evidence in here or anything. It's just fear-mongering and hyperbole and being very vague to scare people. They're like, oh man, if he didn't even tell me like what kind of immoral habits and illegal activities he had, it must have been pretty bad. I'm pretty scared of this guy. I should stay away from Christian rock. And all of this has been said, and we're not even talking about actual rock music. We're talking about Christian rock music. I am just astounded. Oh, well, let's move on. There's the last of the reasons why the rock beat is so bad are going to move by pretty quick. The examples, there's another example here that just about the fifth commandment that just kills me. So I'm going to read it and then I'm going to reveal a fact that changes the context for me quite a lot. I've never been into rock music or even light rock, but lately I believe my standards in music have been going down. Our family was given 2 music tapes a while back. They aren't extremely rocky, but the beat in the music is a little off. They don't describe that anymore. They just say it's a little off, and that's all we get. I have enjoyed those tapes, and when my mother said she really didn't like them, I immediately became defensive. I realize now that even if those tapes were perfectly fine as far as the beat, if my mother didn't like them, it would be wrong for me to listen to them. Let's unpack that. This guy received some rock music. He doesn't specify if it's Christian rock or secular rock, but he says that they were a little off and he enjoyed them. So at this point, everything is good. We're all pluses. Somebody gave him some tapes for free. They weren't extremely rocky and he enjoyed them. So his mother said she didn't really like them and he became defensive. And then he was like, well, man, if my mother doesn't enjoy this music, I shouldn't enjoy this music. Now, here's the fact that changes this a lot for me. This guy, the person who wrote this, is 24 years old. This is a 24-year-old man who does not think that it would be right for him to enjoy and listen to music that his mother doesn't like. And we're all just cool with that. We're all just like, yeah, you don't want to violate that 5th commandment. All right. The next reason is the rock beat violates God's command to give no place to the devil. When sons and daughters disregard the instruction of their parents by listening to the rock beat, they are guilty of the kind of rebellion which is described in 1 Samuel 15:23. Bible verse here. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. End quote. Rebellion is simply serving for myself the right to make final decisions. It is deciding to have an equal voice with those whom God has placed in authority over me. This was the type of rebellion which Satan demonstrated when he said, quote, I will be like the Most High God, end quote. Witchcraft involves exposing oneself to the realm and power of Satan's control. Whoever gives Satan such ground violates the command of Ephesians 4:27, neither give place ground to the devil. The Greek word for place in this verse refers to a sphere of jurisdiction. When Satan is given authority, he uses it to control and destroy the one who gave it to him. Now, I am not an expert, but he just called music witchcraft. Are we all cool with that? This motherfucker, he's implying heavily that listening to rock beat music is witchcraft. Next reason is the rock beat mocks God's command to love not the world. Okay, for the record, I am a Christian. I am pretty good in my faith, I would say. I am by no means a perfect man. Nobody is a perfect man, but I do my darndest best to love the Lord thy God with all my heart and to love my neighbor as thyself. Those are the 2 commandments that Jesus gave when he came to earth. Now, I listen to rock music. I listen to rap music. A lot of it is very interesting, both from a production standpoint and from a performance standpoint and from a lyrical standpoint. Rock music has gotten very interesting these days. A lot of bands have kind of been droning out the same music, but a couple of them have been doing some interesting things. Rap music has been very interesting recently. We've had some rap collective groups like Brockhampton pull out some really interesting and introspective, thought-provoking albums, and we had Tyler, the Creator's Igor this last year, came out a year ago recently, which was an amazing storytelling album. It's great. A lot of this stuff is very interesting, very well thought out, very highly produced, and they've gone on to be very critically acclaimed. So with that being said, let's go ahead and read the very next sentence. There is absolutely no way that Christians who love the rock beat can deny that they love the world. The rock beat is not only originated with the ungodly elements of this world, but it expresses the evil intentions of the world's systems, which is opposed to Christ and his truth. The very phrase rock and roll describes a form of immorality. To say that we have Christian rock is like saying that we can have Christian immorality. Vom. Oh my gosh, that's disgusting. And that's it. That's where they ended that. They decided that, yeah, they've proven their point. Let's just say this, let's just blanket statement. There is no way to have Christian rock. There is no way to say that you love God if you love rock. They're saying there's no way to deny they love the world. Okay. How a family discerned that a Christian children's tape was evil. This one, I'm going to read through it all without commenting because it's a little long, but it's very weird, very interesting. The day before our 3-year-old daughter's surgery, I went shopping for a small gift to give her when she came home from the hospital. At our local Christian bookstore, I bought a tape of children's songs. When she arrived home, we presented her with the tape. She immediately wanted to hear it. We don't own a television set, so listening to her tapes is one of her favorite pastimes. We played it for her, and were disappointed to find that some of the songs had definite rock overtones to them. She picked up on this too because we have trained her to recognize the evil in rock and roll music. Once we knew which songs we didn't care for, we would just skip over them. Whenever she would ask to hear the tape and it came to a song we didn't care for, she would ask us to fix the tape for her. That was all fine and well, but I noticed at times went on and she wanted to listen to that particular tape more than her favorite tapes. At that same time, we started to notice some behavior changes in her that we really didn't care for. She's a normal 3-year-old who would challenge our authority, but she usually knew her boundaries. Usually she would pray and participate enthusiastically in her family devotions, pray before meals, be active and responsive in Sunday school, memorize scripture, and love to sing songs about Jesus. However, the more she listened to this Christian children's tape, the more I noticed her behavior change. She started pushing, shoving, kicking, and biting her friends and her sister. She backtalked more than she ever dared before, and she made faces at us when we asked her to do something. Now, I am not a parent. I'm just going to drop that truth bomb on you guys right now. I am not a parent. I do not have a child. If I do, then I am not aware of it. So with that being said, I know a fair amount about children's psychology, and I've known my fair share of children in youth groups with church and stuff like that in the past. Now, this girl is 3 years old, and she is, let's go ahead and read off the list again. She is pushing, shoving, kicking, biting, back talking? That's not normal for a 3-year-old. It's probably the fucking rock album. The fucking children album, of which we skipped some of the songs. Yeah. There's no other explanation. It makes most of the sense that it's the fucking rock album. That is the only thing that I am willing to accept. We are nearing the end of the page here. The last reason that I wrote down that I thought was interesting to talk about was the rock beat disobeys God's commandment to avoid all appearance. A Christian magazine that claims to be the most widely read resource serving youth ministry contains a chart in its September 1990 issue which matches every worldly rock sound with a comparable Christian rock group sound. Notice the categories: heavy metal, punk/thrash, rap, dance pop, pop/rock, rock and roll, difficult to categorize. Okay, ignoring the fact that these guys don't seem to know a lot about different music genres, which probably means they're qualified to talk about how bad they are. Not only are Christian rock groups imitating the sound of evil rock groups, but they are also copying the evil dress styles and appearance of the world's musicians. An impartial observer would find it difficult, if not impossible, to distinguish many Christian rock groups and worldly rock groups simply by looking at their album covers. Now, I'm going to drop a little bit of a controversial hot take here. Maybe you shouldn't be judging an album by its album cover. I mean, if you expect every Christian album to have whatever performers there are wearing suit and ties and carrying their respective instrument, and that's the only criteria, okay? If that's how you want it to be. If you think anything more creative than that is a worldly rock album, an evil album, as you guys are putting it, then, oh man, and once again, this is a hot take, but maybe you should try listening to the lyrics. Maybe an impartial observer should listen to the lyrics to try to figure out whether it's a Christian album or a worldly rock group. Is that too hot of a take? I don't know. Maybe. Yes, apparently it is. Two more reasons. I'm not going to read any examples or anything. The rock beat contradicts God's command not to be brought under its power. The rock beat opposes God's command to not mix light with darkness. That one sounds kind of racist to me, but whatever. So this article, I am kind of astounded at the fact that it exists. It looks like, to the best of my ability, it looks like this article was written by somebody who is 19 years old. And it looks like they also included a commitment to reject the deception of the rock beat in any form. Quote, Almighty Father, based on the authority of your word and the testimony of others, I now purpose to remove from my life any music that contains a rock beat and replace it with melodious music that glorifies you and edifies others. And it has a spot for a signature and a date. Ooh, it looks like this was written in 1990 and revised in 1992. So this is pretty old. This is at this point 30 years old. So the person who wrote this was 19 when they wrote it. That means they are 49 years old now. That is very interesting. I am curious to know if this person has the same thoughts. I'm just going to Google the name. I'm not seeing anything incredibly interesting. I'm guessing I'm not going to find the person who did it. That's probably a good thing because I don't want anyone to harass them or anything. But the fact that a 19-year-old wrote this probably meant they were really passionate about it because their youth group had talked about it and they realized that they thought that they were right. So they decided to follow what they were being told and get this message out into the world that rock music is bad. And I feel really bad for this girl, the person who wrote this. She really, I mean, she doesn't have any good arguments, obviously, but the fact that there's so much written down here meant that she was really passionate about it at one time. I just feel bad that she's passionate about something that personally I think is a huge waste of time to be passionate about. And one day I might die. I know I will die one day. One day I may die and go to heaven and God will tell me, hey man, that music you listened to, it was not cool. You probably should have avoided all of that. I would be like, oh, damn, well, that's embarrassing. I didn't mean to do that. But I don't think that's going to happen. A lot of the music that I listen to that I was told I was not able to listen to was the music that gave me comfort during the worst times of my life. The times of my life where I felt alone and I felt that nobody understood me. That was when I found a lot of music from groups like 21 Pilots that openly talked about feeling depressed and feeling sad and feeling alone. And the way that they worded things were always hopeful. They always twist things around and say, hey, I feel this way and you might feel this way, but we're going to get through it. And I never had anything like that before. And I don't want to attribute anything too serious. I'm not going to say I'd be dead without music like that, but I know for a fact that discovering that kind of music allowed me to feel less alone during the time of my life where I was more alone than I had ever been in my life. And to see people say that it's evil inherently without providing any information, it always rubs me the wrong way, because they're so bad at making coherent arguments that will work for anything other than just circular reasoning of just helping people who are already in the bubble. As a word for it, I'm trying to think of what it was. There's some sort of fallacy. I apologize. I have completely lost it in my head. But yeah. So I think this is a pretty interesting podcast discussion. For those who have listened to this whole thing, I would be very interested to see what you thought of the longer format. Do you think it's good that it's longer? Do you think it's bad that it's longer? I'd love to get your feedback. Go ahead and hop into the Discord server. Link is in the show notes, and give me some feedback on that. So with that being said, I think that's a wrap.